You've just tapped into the Last Transmission podcast, where prophecy meets reality. Today's question isn't about the future, it's about right now. What if the infrastructure for Revelation 13 is already online? A global surveillance system, a cashless economy controlled by digital ID, a population ranked, restricted, and rewarded, not by faith, but by compliance. From facial recognition to programmable money, China's model is more than political. It's prophetic. Is the beast system already being built? In plain sight? Let's decode the signs before it's too late.
Greetings, I'm your host, and welcome to the Last Transmission podcast.
Pretty to be here.
Today, we're navigating a really fascinating and maybe a bit unsettling intersection.
Yeah.
We're looking at the digital landscape in China. The surveillance, the move towards a central bank digital currency, the social credit system, and comparing it, or at least looking for resonances, with prophecies in the book of Revelation, chapter 13 specifically.
Right, Revelation 13. For centuries, people have tried to understand its descriptions of a powerful controlling system.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you see these technologies emerging, technologies that allow for just unprecedented levels of monitoring and, influence,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder.
Yeah. Are these just tech advancements, or is there something more resonant with those old texts?
That's the question we're exploring.
Okay, so let's get into Revelation 13 a bit. It talks about the second power, often called the false prophet. Verse 11 describes it interestingly. 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon.
That imagery is powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something appearing maybe harmless, even good.
Exactly.
Lamb-like. But the voice, the message, the influence that's dragon-like, deceptive.
Yeah.
And this power, according to the text, it directs worship, directs allegiance towards this dominant worldly system.
And deception seems key here. It's not just brute force, is it?
No, verses 13 and 14 mention it performing significant signs, wonders, specifically to mislead people.
Right.
Which in modern terms really brings to mind things like propaganda, right? The
Right.
strategic use of communication to shape beliefs, to influence behavior.
Absolutely. And if we pivot to China, we see this huge, complex digital surveillance system being built. It involves the government, obviously, but also major tech companies.
Huawei, Hikvision, SenseTime, Migvi, big names.
Yeah. They're all involved. And this isn't entirely new. Think about the Golden Shield project, the Grit Firewall. That was an early version of state control over information flow.
A very early but significant step.
Yeah.
And building on that, you have the concept China pushes called cyber sovereignty.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Well, basically, it's the idea that a nation should control its own internet space, its data, just like its physical territory.
So control the information coming in and out.
Precisely. It's framed as national security, but it definitely provides a justification for extensive state monitoring and filtering of online content, limits outside influence.
And it's not just blocking websites, is it? We hear about companies like Tencent and Weibo actually cooperating with government censorship requests.
Yeah, there's corporate complicity.
Yeah.
And then you look at somewhere like Xinjiang. The surveillance there is multi-layered. It's intense.
Tell us more about that.
Well, they use mobile apps, biometric data, collection, faces, voices, DNA, AI analysis, big data, all combined to monitor the population very, very closely.
So it's not just tracking what people do, but creating this massive digital picture of individuals.
It can be analyzed, patterns identified, behaviors potentially predicted or flagged. It really changes the citizen-state relationship in a fundamental way.
And that leads directly into the social credit system, doesn't it?
It does. That system is essentially a huge big data project aimed at monitoring and, frankly, shaping citizen behavior across the board.
And it has real teeth. Right. Low scores mean consequences.
Oh, definitely. Things like travel bans, restricted access to loans, or even certain jobs. High scores, conversely, bring privileges.
And the goal is everyone.
The stated goal, yes, is eventually to subject all citizens to this system.
Wow. And there are reports, I think, about people getting points for reporting on others, even for things like religious practices.
Yes, that's been reported. Reporting on misdeeds, which can include unsanctioned religious activity, especially in regions like Xinjiang, can apparently boost your score. It turns citizens into monitors of each other in a way.
That sounds dystopic, like a virtual prison, as some have put it.
It raises serious questions about privacy, freedom of belief, freedom of association. Where's the balance?
Okay, so we have this pervasive surveillance, this behavior-shaping system. Now let's add another layer. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. What are these, fundamentally?
Okay, so a CBDC is basically a digital version of a country's regular currency, like the dollar or the yuan, but it's issued and backed directly by the central bank.
How's that different from, say, Bitcoin?
Big difference. Bitcoin is decentralized. No single entity controls it. CBDCs are centralized. The central bank controls the ledger, sees the transactions.
So potential privacy issues there.
That's a major concern, yes.
Yeah.
The government could potentially track every single transaction, see who paid whom, for what, when, where.
Lots of countries are looking into this.
Many are. China's digital yuan is quite advanced. Europe is working on a digital euro. You have the sand dollar in the Bahamas, the naira in Nigeria. It's a global trend.
And beyond just tracking, what other control mechanisms could this enable?
Well, this is where it gets potentially more concerning for individual autonomy because the currency is programmable.
Programmable.
Yeah, the central bank could potentially build rules into the money itself. Imagine things like negative interest rates applied directly to your holdings, or even restrictions on what you can buy, or time limits on when you have to spend certain funds.
Wow. Okay. So money that expires or can only be used for specific things approved by the government?
Theoretically, yes. Proponents say it could help manage the economy or fight crime, but the potential for abuse, for controlling citizens' financial lives, is pretty significant.
And governments are quite open about wanting this control.
Some officials have been quite candid. You've had central bankers talk about CBDCs as a tool to fight crypto, meaning decentralized currencies they don't control. The People's Bank of China has voiced concerns about private digital currencies threatening economic stability. Centralization is key for them.
Okay, so let's tie this back to Revelation, chapter 13, verse 17. It says that no one could buy or sell unless they had this mark.
Exactly. And when you imagine a future where maybe all money is digital, issued by the state, and potentially programmable or conditional,
The ability to economically exclude people who don't comply, who don't have the mark or its equivalent in that system, becomes technically feasible in a way it never was before.
it certainly creates a mechanism for that kind of economic coercion described in the text.
So laying it all out, the surveillance, the social credit shaping behavior, the potential for CBDCs to control transactions, the parallels, or at least the potential infrastructure for something like Revelation 13, you can definitely see it.
The resonances are there. And remember that other theme, spiritual deception.
Right, the lamb's horns but dragon's voice.
Revelation 13.11-15 talks about the second power deceiving people, making them give allegiance, making them worship the first beast. Think about modern propaganda, sophisticated AI-driven manipulation.
The ability to craft narratives, to create group identities that demand total loyalty, to maybe even generate signs and wonders digitally.
It's plausible. Think about deepfakes, tailored disinformation campaigns. Laswell and Gorman define propaganda techniques like desensitization, jamming channels with noise, conversion through powerful narratives. These are actively used today.
And political movements often create these strong identity markers demanding loyalty, don't they? Aligning with the group becomes paramount.
It can mirror that kind of allegiance the beast system seems to demand. And Jesus himself warned, didn't he? Matthew chapter 24, verse 24, about false messiahs, false prophets doing signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect.
That verse feels particularly relevant when you consider AI's potential for manipulation.
Imagine AI designed to exploit psychological vulnerabilities at scale. It could certainly foster the kind of widespread, perhaps unthinking allegiance Revelation describes.
And this isn't just happening in China, is it? These technologies are spreading.
No, China is actively exporting its surveillance tech, its digital infrastructure models, to many countries around the world.
So the infrastructure for this kind of control is potentially going global.
That's a significant trend. Pew Research even predicted that AI-driven surveillance could effectively enslave large parts of the population by 2030 if unchecked.
Chilling. Now, we should be clear, the mark of the beast itself might be symbolic, representing allegiance to worldly powers over God.
Absolutely. It may not be a literal chip or digital ID.
But the technology we're discussing, it certainly looks like it could be the means used to enforce that allegiance, especially the economic aspect.
The technology could provide the mechanism, yes. Whether it's the fulfillment is another question. But the parallels in terms of control, potential deception, and global reach are hard to ignore.
So it really highlights this convergence, doesn't it, between these rapidly advancing technologies and these ancient prophetic warnings, especially around economic control and mass deception.
It does. And it really pushes us, I think, to consider the implications as we move further into digital currencies and ubiquitous surveillance.
Yeah, what's that balance between progress, security, convenience, and preserving fundamental freedoms, individual liberty, spiritual autonomy?
It's the crucial question. Where is the line, and are we crossing it?
Leaves you with a lot to think about. What are the ultimate consequences of a world this interconnected, this monitored, this potentially controlled?
A question for all of us to ponder.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this exploration on the Last Transmission podcast.
You've been listening to the Last Transmission podcast. The beast system isn't coming. It's already being tested. China's digital blueprint, surveillance, social scoring, and economic control isn't just policy. It's prophetic preparation. Revelation warned of a world where no one could buy or sell without the mark. Now we're watching it unfold. One scan, one score, one system at a time. Stay watchful, stay grounded. Because if you're not marked by truth, you may be programmed by the beast. Until next time, this was The Last Transmission.